Hey, thanks for joining me for another episode of What's in the Box. So, which one are we looking at here? I think we're looking at this one. This sucker right here. What do we got in here? So, this is fun because I don't always go through here. I might come in here, I don't know, once a week to change out the lenses I use. If you heard of Pareto's Law, the 80-20 rule, a few of the lenses you use most often, right? So some of these I don't see for a long time, right? Because I never use them. So it's fun to come in here. It's time for me, obviously, to replace these silica gel packets that I use to keep the moisture out of here and the mold at bay and the haze and all that. So we'll take care of that. But discovering what I've already got and put money in, you know, it's fun. Remember, I have not spent a ton of money on these lenses. I typically buy them for $20, $30, $40, $50, maybe $100, $120, right? So try to give you some tips here if you're interested, and also just kind of show off what I got and tell you a little bit about my experience with collecting lenses over about the last year. All right, and that was all triggered off by me getting this Sony NEX5N and discovering the world of legacy lenses. This is one of my favorite zoom lenses ever. It is sharp, it is cheap. I paid $20 for this lens. I have taken some wonderful pictures of the moon, which you shouldn't really be able to do with a 200mm lens, but I have done it. And during the day, so it had that blue background to it. It's really cool here. This is one of my favorite lenses because of the build quality. It's mostly metal. There's a little bit of plastic. This sliding hood is plastic, but it's got a really good heft to it. And again, I got it with this foot. Apparently I shouldn't put the boxes up stacked like that. This foot, very important, okay? Look for adapter rings with this foot. Buy it, even if the lens is little, okay? If it's one of those little prime lenses, just get it, okay? Because you're gonna get a zoom lens probably sooner or later, and you do not want all the weight of this lens hanging off the adapter mount, or the mount of that camera. It will rip and screw it up like I've screwed up mine, so that the autofocus doesn't really work on that anymore, all right? So fortunately, I don't care because I shoot stills and not much video with that camera, and it's mostly a manual, well now it is, manual camera anyway, and I'm not afraid of manual focusing. So this, by the way, is a Soligor, S-O-L-I-G-O-R, f 3.5, 75 to 205 millimeters, and this is a curious lens because it has a dial to switch it from normal zoom to macro mode, and you don't see that very often, so it must have a short focal distance. And just looking at that, it says 7 feet here, but I'm sure in the macro world it's much shorter. I have really enjoyed this lens. I use it a lot. I go downtown and I shoot pictures of architectural elements on buildings with it. I just love it. So I highly recommend this lens, and if you can find it, it's cheap. I mean, like I said, I paid 20 bucks for it, and it's been one of my most valuable lenses. The build quality is amazing. It has kind of a funny aperture ring. You can probably see it there. The blades kind of overlap each other, so I don't know about bokeh with this, but I'm not shooting it for bokeh. I'm shooting it for f8, f11, you know, who cares, level aperture for exposure, because I want everything in focus usually. I mean, this would take great portraits too, I'm sure. I just haven't done it. I've got a different camera that I use for that. So this thing goes from f.35, 3.5 to f22, and 75 to 205 millimeters. So that's kind of an odd zoom range. But if I had to just have one manual legacy zoom lens for the rest of my life, this would be it. That Tamron that I showed in the other video is great, but I would pick this because it's so versatile and so just so sharp. So there's the weird ring right there that lets you switch it to macro. And I really haven't used it that way much. In fact, I have to confess, I probably owned this for like 6 or 8 months before even seeing that on there. Because when I started out, my journey was, oh, I love zoom. And I used the camera that I'm using to shoot this video right now for zoom, because it's a Canon SX30 IS bridge camera, because it's got freaking amazing zoom. And I still use it. Most of my moonshot pictures with massive detail in that are with this camera that I'm shooting the video with right now. So I was all into zoom, and then I didn't understand prime lenses at all. I was like, why would you want that? So it took me, again, about 6 months at least of getting into photography and taking freaking pictures. I hope you are taking freaking pictures. Get out there and shoot, okay? Because that's how you learn. You don't learn by reading or watching videos and that. Those are great for feedback. I watch a lot of photography videos, but my point of view on them is I'm almost reactive to them, where I've gone out and I've gotten some experience, and then I see what they are proposing and go, oh, that's what that's about, because I have experiential knowledge now, right? Or I'm trying to solve a problem. Right, like this experience wasn't very good and the photos didn't turn out sharp and I don't understand why, and then I'll go on and I'll find out the reason. So this is a great lens, this Soligor 75 to 205 millimeters. Amazing. If you can find one, again, this came FD mount. It'll fit right on old Canon cameras, and you can just adapt it, but get that foot. I can't stress that enough. All right. This I would consider a failure on my part, purchasing this lens. It is a Tamron. It is a 90 to 300 millimeter lens. And when I bought it, I thought, ooh. And this was one of the more expensive ones at the time, like in my first couple months buying, right? Good third-party manufacturer. Build quality is pretty plasticky. It looks a little out of date, actually. The turn isn't that great for the zoom. I'm not in love with this, if you could tell. I'm gonna wait for this plane to pass. So I got all excited about, oh, I got this 300 millimeter lens, and remember, I'm really into zoom, and wow, this is gonna be awesome. I took it out and I tried to do some moonshots with it, and they weren't good. The focus was terrible. Now, 2 factors for that. One, I didn't understand aperture and exposure at the time in the way that I do now, because of experience and learning and stuff like that. But also, this thing, when you put the adapter mount on it to get it from the Adapt-All to the Sony NEX mount, it made the aperture variable. So it's like a full slider. There's no clicking. It's like a film camera lens, you know, for shooting movies. So that's kind of cool. And I have to say, I probably could get good results out of this lens if I learned how to use it properly, because then I discovered the word macro on the box. And macros for shooting close up and that. So this might be really great for portraits and close in work and that. I don't know. I have taken some super clear pictures with it inside my house, even though the f-stop, yeah, 4.5. That's about what you expect, right? At this level of quality. It was originally an autofocus lens, this one, but obviously those connections don't work for the Sony camera, so it is manual for me. But if I take the time and I zoom in and I'm not that far away from my subject, then this thing can take pretty good quality pictures. So I wouldn't recommend this one, but it's kind of neat to have, and maybe one day I'll get back to it, but for right now, So the last lens we'll look at in this box, and you can see we fit about 3 into one of these boxes, is an Olympus lens that I got as part of a package. Somebody's relative had died, and I saw this bunch of crap advertised on Craigslist. The guy was just like, I have Olympus stuff. Like, he didn't list it out. He didn't say what was in it because he didn't know. He wasn't a photography guy. He just had a bunch of crap. He didn't understand mounts and will this fit with that? Didn't even occur to the guy, okay? So I kept looking at it and looking at it. I mailed the guy and I said, why don't you list what it is or try and part it out separately? And he gave me a snarky, why don't you just buy it kind of thing. So I'm like, fine, I'll give you $50 for it. And so, so I met the guy discovered his story that somebody had died close to him and had all this stuff. And I got a bunch of adapter rings and another flash, I think, and other crap. And this lens, though. This lens is a Vivitar 90mm prime lens, and it's a macro lens, and it's f2.8, so not bad. Now, I've watched a lot of photography experts talk, and 90mm is probably at the low end of where you really want as a macro. You probably want 100, 120, something like that, right? But I like this lens as soon as I saw it. It has really great build quality. It's all metal. The turn ring is really tight. And the only problem with it was it had some fungus in there. I keep saying mold, but I mean fungus. And so I mean, this thing's worth $100 easy. Everything else in the kit was worth way more than that. I paid $50 for it, so I don't care. So I took this to a local camera shop and had them disassemble and fix it for $30, $40. Wasn't a lot of money. You'll probably have to pay more, and I probably will next time too, but that's what they did it for, you know? I didn't suggest the price, they did. So this thing goes from f2.8 to f22, and I like it. You know, the guy did a good job cleaning it for me, and I have used this a few times outside to get some good photos. There's that foot again, you see? And oddly, in a drawer over here, I have kind of one of those rolling mechanics carts type things with a whole bunch of drawers in it, and in one of those drawers, I was looking at it right before I started shooting this video, I found an Olympus mount without the foot. So I guess I had originally bought the ring mount and then gone, oh no, wait, I need the heavy duty one so that this weight isn't all pulling on the end of that camera. So I like this lens. It's the only true macro lens I've got, and so I'm just really impressed with the build quality of this and the clarity of the pictures. A macro lens like this does take some time to figure out because the depth of field is so narrow. It's like, it's wafer thin, you know, and you gotta move it back and forth a little bit to try and get that focal point. And if your subject moves like it's a bug or something, it's very frustrating. But I have taken some great insect pictures with this thing where you can see the eyeballs and stuff. So I like it. I recommend it. That's the Vivitar 90mm f2.8, and it's slightly larger diameter. Most of them are 50, 55 millimeters in diameter. This one's 62, so it's a bit gigantic. I can't really speak to the bokeh of this. I've used it 3-4 times, and I don't think I put it on the camera in a few months. So it's probably time for me to revisit this one again. So that's what's in this box. We looked at the Tamron 100 300 millimeter that I didn't really like. This Soligar 75 to 205 zoom and macro. Awesome lens, awesome. Seems to weigh about 10 pounds. And that macro Vivitar 90mm lens there. So join me next time for another episode of What's in the Box, and I look forward to showing off a little bit about what I got here and talking about it. Thanks for watching.